So I talked to you about domain, tools, methodology, quality. The next important point to keep in mind is innovation. Now, we think that innovation is something that happens in spurts, but you need to understand that innovation has to be a managed process in the organization. Innovation has to be a culture, and everybody in the organization must know what is the essence of innovation. How do you innovate? Now, innovation requires a soft infrastructure. It needs basically innovation stems from creativity. And for people to have creativity, people need to have a soft infrastructure in the organization. The job of top management then is to create that soft infrastructure where people feel free, people feel good about connecting with each other. There is emphasis on learning, there's emphasis on sharing of learning. There is celebration of every small innovation, not just the large innovations. Innovation essentially is your ability to answer this very simple question. Every quarter, CEO downwards, whoever I meet in the corridor, and if I shoot a question to you, hey, what's new and different this quarter? That person, without blinking an eye, should be able to say that. Now, it need not be something very, earth-shattering. Somebody may just say, a CEO may say, oh, what's new and different this quarter? I have learned a new hobby. You know what's new and different this quarter? I have quit smoking. You know what's new and different this quarter? I have started reading fiction. Okay. So it doesn't have to be something which is related to work. So is there a culture of exploring in the organization? Are people humming about their exploration? And going back to the example of a tool, many organizations do not have any idea about the fact that you need to invest in tools that help the organization to be innovative. The next important point is to focus on branding. SMEs actually become very under invested in branding. They tend to have mental blocks. They also not only have mental blocks like, is this something where it's worth spending money? Do I need to myself learn about branding, brand management, and marketing? Do I have a PR agency? Have I personally been trained by the PR agency on how to speak, how to communicate? Now, do I invest time in looking at the branding strategy of competitors? Do I look at branding strategy of non-competitors? What is it that I can learn from all these people? The branding is partly a science, partly an art, and partly it is witchcraft. Okay. Before you get the witchcraft right, you first have to understand the art and the science. Now, if you look at the inherent reality of branding, it is not about making empty claims. I define branding as the externalization of inner value created. So you first have to clearly understand what is the inner value that day in and day out you're creating. Not just for your customers, it could be for your own people, it could be for your other stakeholders. So how do you first make inventory of your inner value? And how do you externalize those so that the world outside is able to grant you what is called reputational capital? Now, I'm going to wind down this one-way conversation in 2 minutes, but I'm going to make a very important point at this time. You will find that tons and tons of startup companies actually break through the sound barrier and they go above the clouds, and they do phenomenally well with a clearly defined domain, investment in tools, methodology, quality. They're extremely innovative. They get the branding right, And, these are the days of the flamboyant CEO or startup founder who will be, who who sometimes you feel that are these guys in business or these guys are actually, party animals. But whatever it is, they do a damn good job of hogging the pink papers. Okay? But yet, something suddenly goes wrong. And I don't need to give you names. Every week, the newspaper will tell you that one more brilliant founder with all the right credentials, all the right amount of money, has actually committed suicide, has basically hung himself or herself in public square and has become yesterday. This suicide is not a physical suicide. It is basically, you kill your own potential, your own success, because you don't pay attention to governance. Governance is extremely, extremely important. And typically SMEs don't pay attention to governance because you think it is non-trivial. You think that, so I will put policies in place, I will put audits in place, I will actually get a coach, mentor, guide for myself. I will pay attention to the issue of integrity. I'll pay my taxes right after some time. Governance cannot be an afterthought. Governance becomes your DNA. The number of people blowing up every day because of poor governance is just mind-blowing. And it starts with a small mistake, one mistake at a time, and typically it happens from CEO downwards. It's not just about, the sexual, transgression by the founder, the CEO. It is not about fudging the bills. It is not just about, doing insider trading and all that kind of stuff. The problem begins when the founder, the CEO, actually begins to look at the business as my own. Its business is my own property. Your business is not your own property. Business has its own body, its own soul, and you are an enabler. So the assets of the business are not your assets. The money in the business is not your own money. You take whatever reasonable salary that will pass scrutiny of governance, and that's the money that belongs to you. So the moment you start thinking that the organization is proprietary to you, the moment you start thinking that the assets belong to you, then that is where governance begins to fail. The other important thing is, of course, people bring in friends and family, which is okay. Great organizations in the world are sometimes family run. BMW is a family run company. Okay. And it's one of the greatest companies that you have ever seen. But even if you have your wife in the organization or your husband in your organization or your daughter or son in the organization, you need to make sure that your family ties are not tying up the organization. So how do you manage to create transparency and governance? What are the chances that if your spouse is messing up, that your subordinate will come and report the matter to you? Okay. So how do you draw that line? Now, the moment you start actually thinking that your organization is your property, or you start bringing in friends and family, governance begins to erode. Now, governance is not just about being good. Governance again has its roots in tools and methodology, which enable a certain consistency of practice. If you don't have the right tools and the right methodologies, if you're not training yourself and training the organization, culture will not take care of itself. So it is not a warm and fuzzy thing. It is not a soft thing. It is actually something which requires the correct digital infrastructure, investment in the digital infrastructure, in the right methodologies and processes, and you can get the expertise, all these areas that I talked about. Domain, tool, methodology, quality, innovation, branding, and governance. All these things require expert handling. You cannot be good at these things by yourself. You continuously look at where is the expertise on this. And then what happens? You are an SME. So you say, I'm too small. I'm just a 5 crore company. I cannot afford an expert on branding. I cannot afford an expert on governance, But what stops you from talking to 3 other friends who also are 2 crore, 5 crore, 20 crore company and saying that let's pull together and learn together and let's engage and share. Many times you'll be surprised how you can actually pull together and create resources which can make a difference. Okay. But many times it is not even that. It is about, it is about your willingness to continuously learn yourself. Typically, founders postpone learning. Okay. And they love to learn about what they already know. So I'm a great hacker. So, I will keep going deeper into technology. I'm a great sales guy, so I will not learn about human resource development. I'm a, great people-oriented person, but I freeze when making a sales pitch to a prospect. Okay. So at the top, there has to be a continuous process of learning where the top management of the company leaves the comfort of what you do behind and create discomfort for yourself. Only when you create discomfort for yourself that you are able to learn new things. And when you learn new things, the organization gets the signal that they have to learn new things.
Fantastic advice for SMEs.